Hey everyone, I'm Flixer. Welcome back to part 2 of my full intro tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how to do the background and the splines. So let's get into it. Alright, first thing we're going to do is going to right click and we're going to make a new comp. Call this BG for background, hit enter. There we go. Right click, new, solid. Make it whatever color, doesn't really matter, we're going to be adding a gradient, and hit OK. Go over to effects and presets and type in gradient ramp. Double click and you'll get this. Now the start of color, we're going to change this to whatever color your intro is, and the end color, we're going to change this to a darker color of whatever your intro is. So then you get this little fade. Now this looks decent already, but we're going to add some shapes. Go over to the rectangle tool, click on it, make the stroke 65. Make sure it's white, no fill. Hold shift and drag out like that. Now click on the shape layer, press R to bring up the rotation and change the second value to 45. Now it'll rotate like this to create a diagonal kind of shape. Now we're going to go over to the Align tab and align it both ways. Now we're going to go onto the shape layer, go to the anchor point tool. We're going to click on the anchor point, hold Control and snap it to the center. Now we're going to click on the shape layer again, press shift and press the up arrow until the anchor point is 2 times past the edge of the frame. Now we're going to click on it once again, press S to bring up the scale, and bring it down until you can't see it anymore. Just like that. Now we're going to press the little stopwatch to create a keyframe. Go over to this, click on it, type 100, that'll bring you to 1 second, and then increase the scale until it comes off the screen. And now it should look like this. And now we're going to make some different kinds of these. So we're going to go over to the shape layer, Control D to duplicate it, then go to effects and presets and search up Splines. Go to Venetian Splines, double click, and then it'll bring up here. It won't do anything, but what we're going to do is going to go to transition completion, up it up to about 50%, change the direction to 90 degrees, and we're going to bring this shape layer back by just dragging it. And then you'll see that it creates these little lines in between. Bring it back far enough so it's got an even spacing between it. What we're going to do is we're going to make the width a bit higher. Probably about 60. That looks pretty good. And now we're going to click on the layer, go to the stroke color up here, and change it to the color of your intro so it'll look like this. Now we're going to duplicate that shape, bring it back as well, about the same spacing as the first one, like that, so they've all got even spacing. But we're going to grab this one and duplicate the Venetian Splines effect and put it at 0. And now you'll get these little squares, just like that. Now they're all varied, and it'll look like this. That looks pretty good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add the echo effect to this. So now what we're going to do is click on the first one and then the third one, holding shift so then it selects all of them. Right click, pre-compose, name this shapes or whatever you want. Then go to effects and presets and search up the effect echo. Drag that onto the shapes comp. What we're going to do is we're going to get the echo time seconds and bring it back far enough until it looks about the same spacing between each of them. So go to the last one of the shapes, which for us is the donuts, and try to make it line up with the gaps between each of them. I think the second echo is a bit too fast, so I'm just going to make it -1.3. That looks a bit better, and now it should be quite even. That looks pretty good, but you might notice that it only echoes one time. You want to turn that up to about 10 or 15, and then it should just happen repeatedly. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the main comp by clicking here, go to project and bringing the BG under the text. And then you'll see that it just plays out like this. But you might notice that it kind of looks unnatural to have the text just on top of it. So we're going to search up the effect drop shadow. Go to the effects controls on text and drag it onto there. And now the opacity is going to be 30. Direction is going to be 180. The distance is going to be about 20. And the softness is going to be increased to about 75. That looks a bit more natural. Now it blends a bit better. Now you might have noticed that it looks a bit bland. So we're going to go back over to project, right click, new composition, splines. Now splines are the little lines that you see going around in the background, and splines are a really good added effect that adds a lot to your intros depending on what splines you make. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to this pen tool over here, change the stroke to white, keep it at about 65. What you're going to do is you're going to click once wherever you want. I'd recommend coming from a corner. And now you're going to try and just make a random shape by just clicking and dragging. Just like this. You can drag the points if you want. Just make something that looks decent. It doesn't have to look very good like this, because it'll end up looking pretty good once we add 2 of them and the trim paths. You can drag these points out to make it a bit different if you want. Doesn't really matter though. Just go wild with this. Try to make it a pretty big line. Just so you've got a lot of room to work with. Because sometimes your intros are short, sometimes they're long. But what you want to do at the end is bring the point off screen. And this may look pretty bad, it just looks like a scribble. But what we're going to do is we're going to click on the shape layer, drop down on contents, click add, and go to trim paths. Now make sure you're at 0 seconds. Enable keyframes for the start and end, make them both 0. Then type about 800, which brings you to 8 seconds, and make them both 100 again. Now you'll see that nothing happens. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all of them, press F9 on your keyboard to easy ease. Then we're going to select the top row and bring them back a bit. And you can see that it will make this little line that comes in, goes around, comes back, and comes out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab both of these end ones and bring them in, just so it's a bit quicker. And I'm going to grab the top 2 and bring them back a little bit to make it a bit shorter. And just like that, you've got yourself a spline. We're going to close the drop down, select the layer, Control D to duplicate it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go over to here, change the stroke width to about 40 to 45, and we're going to bring this layer back just a bit, so you've got this little trail, and then you're going to change the color to whatever color your intro is. Mine's red, so it'll look like this. And there you've got yourself a spline. I'm going to bring mine forward a little bit just so it's really close to the top, just like that. And now you want to save. And now you're going to grab both of these layers, Control D to duplicate, press R to bring up the rotation for both of them, make the second value 180. So now you've got two of them, just like this. This looks way better than just one. You might have seen in my previous intro that I've just made one spline instead of two. I'm going to show you how to do that. It's much the same as this, you just don't duplicate it, and really you don't need to add this little red bit unless you want. And we're going to create a new composition, and we're going to call this single spline. Now we're going to do the same thing we did last time, make the stroke white, make it 65, and then just do the same thing as we just did, but make it a bit shorter so it's a lot quicker. That should be good enough, just a really short one, just for a quick effect in the background. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing, drop down contents, add trim paths, start and end, make them both 0. Go forward to about 4 seconds this time, then make them both 100. Then select them all, F9 to easy ease. Grab the top two, move them back a little bit, and then it'll look like this. Shorten that a little bit to make it a bit quicker. And that's basically it for the single splines. Unless you want to make them rounded or anything, you can just go into the shape, go into the stroke, and change this to round cap and round join, just like that. But I'm going to keep it just normal, just like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a burst spline. So create a new composition, call this burst. We're going to go to this little button here, and then choose proportional grid. Now keep on the pen tool, and zoom in right into the middle. This doesn't have to be perfect. Now you want to click right here, and then it'll make a line. Now you can turn off proportional grid and select this, go to contents, add trim paths once again. Start end 0, then go to about 100, make it 100, 100. F9, easy ease, select the top two, and then bring them back. Then it should be like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to select all of them and click this little button here, which goes into the graph editor. And now we're going to change these so it's got a massive spike at the top, so it jolts quickly and then fades out. Now just adjust these until the timing is right. Just fiddle around with this until it looks right. I think that looks pretty good. So now it's just one going like that. So now we're going to select it, Control D to duplicate it, press R, and then change it to 180. So now you got two just going like that. Now I'm going to select both of these, Control D, R, and now you have to drag. You can't just type in the value, you have to drag for this one. Just make sure this one says 90. And it should look like this. Now we're going to close these, get this, Control D again, R, and then change this bottom one until it says about 45. And then you get this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grab all of this, press S, and then turn the scale down until it all fits in the frame. Just like that, and there you go, you got a burst. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go new composition, call this big burst, and then grab the burst comp and drag it into here because we are lazy, and then select it, Control D, press R, drag the value until says 22. Now we're gonna add a fill effect. Grab it and I'll fill it in with the color. Just select the color you want. Mine's autoed to red. And then you get this, which looks pretty good. So now I'll go back to the main comp. And now we can add the splines and the bursts. Make sure to save. Always save. Don't forget to save, otherwise you will hate yourself. Let's do the time remap first. Go onto BG, right click, time, enable time remapping, and press K, and click the keyframe button. Then you can just do this over and over until you've done it on all of these. Now we're going to hover over all of them, select them all, F9 to easy ease, click this icon which goes into the graph editor, right click, edit value graph. So now we can zoom in, press tilde, which is under your escape key or next to 1, so it brings it up on the whole screen. And now we're going to make these values right. So we're going to bring this one up and this one down. Now you might have to adjust these separately just so they look better. Just kind of make it like a curve. Like that. Just adjust these how it needs to be, just so it's kind of like a bounce each time. And it should look good. So if you press tilde again, then it should look pretty good. Now might be the time that you go to resolution, go to custom, and change it to about 10 pixels each, so then it renders a lot quicker, but you can still kind of see the full image. Now go to project and let's insert our splines. So get the splines comp, drag it under the text, and then it'll start here, but we want to go to the BG, drop down, click on the time remap, press Ctrl C, then go to the splines, go to the start, make sure you do that, and then press Ctrl V. And it should go like this. Now what you want to do for splines, you'll notice that it starts at the start, but you don't want that because they're too short. So you want to go into the splines comp by just clicking it here, selecting all of these, and then just dragging them back a few seconds. And then it should just play out like that. Now what we're going to do is we need to add a drop shadow. So I'm just going to render this frame on quarter. And now we're going to search up drop shadow. And add this to the splines. Drag it in there. Now, make the opacity 20, distance 20, and the softness 2. And that should look pretty good. Now what we can do is click on the drop shadow. Ctrl C to copy it, go into the background comp, go into the shapes, and press Ctrl V. Now you've got a shadow on the shapes, which looks a lot better. Go back to main comp, and you see this is looking quite a bit better. So now we're going to go back to the custom resolution, going to go back to project, and import the single spline. Make sure this one's over the normal splines just so you can see it better. And now figure out where you want to put it. So we're just going to go to the single spline and drag it to where you want. You don't have to time remap this one because it's very short and it'll just play like that. But I think I'm going to go into here. I'm going to go into the keyframes and I'm going to make this a bit quicker. Just like this. Now we're going to go to the effects controls, Ctrl V, just to paste the drop shadow again. And that's looking pretty good. Okay, now what we're going to do is go to project. We're going to add the burst now. So drag in the burst, put this under the splines, We're going to put a burst right when the intro starts. So at this first beat, we're going to drag the burst to there. And it should just play like this. Drag it back a bit because there's a bit of a delay. Now we're going to Control V to add the drop shadow again. So now we're going to drag the big burst over here, under the spline still. Drag it to where you want. Make sure it's a bit before just because of the delay, and it should look like this. That's looking pretty good. Now add the drop shadow so it's a bit more noticeable and doesn't blend too much with the background. And now I figured a point, like about here, there's two parts that kind of look good for a double burst. These two beats, so we're going to go Project, right click, New Composition, Double Burst. Now I'm gonna grab the big burst because it looks a bit better with the variety of colors. I'm gonna grab it, and we're just gonna get the select tool, press shift, and press the arrow key to the left until it goes out as far as you want, until it just reaches the end of the screen. Make sure it doesn't hit the edge. Just like that, that should be good. Now what we're going to do is going to click on this, click S, change the scale to about 75. Now we can move it a bit more, just so it's not in the way as much. That looks pretty good. Now we're going to click on it, Control D, then move it back a bit, just so it's in time with the song. Alright, now we're going to move this to the other side. Just like that. So it goes like boom, boom. That's looking pretty good. Now go back to the main comp. Grab double burst, put it under, drag it to where you want, a bit before, so then it goes like this. That lines up pretty good. Now we're going to grab the drop shadow, put it on there. There we go, we got some bursts. Now I'm going to duplicate the double burst, and we're going to put another one about here. There we go. Save it. And that's about it. That's all the things we've made today. We've got the background, got the time remap on the splines, got a single spline, got a few bursts done. So today I showed you how to make a background, some splines, and some spline bursts. That's going to be it for today. Stay tuned for part 3. I'm going to be adding text animations, and I'm going to be adding the sync. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you in the next one.